Hello, this is Ryan Roy with Liberty3D.com. In this video, I'd like to go over some of the updates and additions that have been made to the RR Toolset. Now, this update is not free. It'll be $10, and look for the discount coupon in your email so that you can get it at that price. Now, the purpose of this video is to show you what exactly these updates and additions are. So let's not waste any time here. First off, the Translate and Rotate Average tools have been updated so that they no longer require separate plugins to alter the pivot or keep any controllers or anything like that. So you can select your items as you normally would, run the plugin, and you get the controller, and you can scale it, you can rotate it, and you can do all that stuff. Now, if you press the up and down arrow keys, you can cycle through various options that these controllers have. So if I wanted to make it so that these boxes also rotate with the controller, now it's just as easy as pressing the down arrow key and running the tool with this option selected. All right, and now the controller makes the boxes rotate as well as move. All right, pivot works the same way. You set the pivot, select the tool, move the controller anywhere that you want, run the tool again, and now your pivot happens from this spot in 3D space. All right. And an update has been made to the keep function. Now, the keep function was a way for you to have multiple translate or rotate average controllers present in the scene at once. So if I run the keep tool, use translate average, and I'll put several controllers in here. So use the keep function, run translate average. All right, and I'll do the same thing here. And now we can see that all of these controllers can be moved and rotated independently, and it just works that way. Now, the change from the previous version of this tool is that you can now undo the keep operation. So if you find at any point of your animation that you need to get rid of this controller and you need full control over these boxes, I mean, you can control these boxes individually still using the blue nulls that the items get constrained to. But if you need to remove this controller entirely and bake its animation out, you can now select any kept controller and undo the keep operation. All right, so running translate average will now make this bakeable. So I can run the plugin again and it bakes the keyframes out. So we got that. Now, the rotate tool works almost identically as it did before, except for now the translate and rotate average functions operate independently of each other. So they can be used together even. So if I get rid of the rotate average tool and I decide that I want to use rotate average with translate average, well, I can now layer these controllers on top of each other. And of course, you need the rotate with nulls option on in order to enable this functionality. So there you go. And now we have both translate and rotate average working together concurrently. The GDRig IKB chain tool has been updated quite a bit as well. This tool gives IK Booster users a means of applying full-time IK to any part of their animation. And what I mean by this is that, well, IK Booster is a part-time IK system. This means that the IK that you're seeing right now is only ever applied while you are moving the character. Okay, so looking at the in-between frame results, things are sliding around. Okay, that's what part-time IK is. It does not interpolate things for you. The trade-off, of course, is that you are able to modify your character rig however you want, at any frame without any consequences of any kind. There are no dependencies that are created by this. All right. And furthermore, IK Booster provides you the ability to bake out this IK effect so that you can anchor things in place. Okay, so it's not really that much of a drawback used in this context where the feet of the character are planted on the floor. However, when the object that the character needs to interact with is also moving and rotating, this would often pose to be a problem, and while I had workflow solutions for this, I felt it could be even easier than what I demonstrated in some of my training content. So now all you have to do to make this character interact with this box is select their hand bones and run the tool. So you get full-time IK here, all right, which you can interpolate on and off, and you have all the standard controls, all right. And now all I have to do from here is select the box, and I'll have the grabber tool operate a few frames before this happens so that the interpolation will look correct. So run the grabber tool on the box, grab these goal objects that were created by the DD-Rig tool, and use the grabber tool again. So now, when this box moves, the IK chain setup that you see here is moving with it. This means that no matter where I put this box in the scene, the character is going to dynamically grab it. So if I go into the Modify tab and use the Move Path tool, which moves the entire motion path of whatever you have selected, and I move this box away, the character is going to reach out and grab it. All right, so if I move the box over here, now the character is going to grab the box over here. All right. It's dynamic workflows like this that have been a problem in the past for IK Booster users, and it no longer has to be. Let's talk about some of the changes that have been made to this tool. Now, the tool is now much smarter, and there's a lot more math involved when it comes to pairing your character's current pose with full-time IK. Now when you run the tool, it does all the calculations and math necessary to get your character in the exact same pose as they were before they were constrained. So now it just works, okay? And now from this frame onward, you have full-time IK working on your character. I have also added an option to extract the pull objects from the IK chain. If I apply the DD-Rig tool to both of these characters, we'll notice that when the center of gravity moves, the knees move with it. This is because the direction of the IK is assumed to be the same as these goal items. Now, this works in the majority of cases, but not all. You might want your character's elbows or knees to not move with the body. All right, and previously there was no user-friendly way to do this, but now you can select the IK plane bones in the IK chain, run the tool, and you get the pole, you get the null that acts as the pole. So let me get this pole down here. All right, and this dictates the direction of the knees or elbows on the character. So now when I move the body around, the knees don't move nearly as much as they did before. Okay, they're not moving with the body anymore because they're constrained to these pull objects. Okay, this is much better in situations like this where you have a character and they're leaning against a table or something, and the normal setup has the elbow moving with the body, but now you can use the tool and move the pole wherever it is needed. All right, and now the elbow stays in place much better. The way the DD-Rig IK chain is created has also been changed, and I have some good news and bad news about this. The bad news is that I had to remove the load from scene functionality from my script due to stability issues with repeated use of this tool. This has nothing to do with IK Booster and everything to do with the load from scene function when used in scripting. Since IK Booster properties are not scriptable, it means that you have to set up the quaternion mode on the goal and FK rotations on the fall-off and joint controllers manually. This leaves you with the same very user-friendly setup that the previous version of the tool had. Now the good news is that I've added some additional functionality that boosts the usefulness of this tool even further. You can now click on any one of these IKB handles, apply the fix property by right-clicking, and now it'll pivot along this point in 3D space. All right, and you can rotate it any way you want, and it just works. All right, and I'll undo the fix here. Now, if you ever want to modify the spacing of these IKB handles, previously you had to manually select all of them, and doing that was kind of challenging. So what I did was made it so that if you have any of these selected and run the tool, it'll select all of them for you. You can then follow this up with translate average and space them out accordingly. All right. And if I run this tool again, now I can make my widget pivot from this point in 3D space instead of back here. All right. So now it pivots from this point, and of course you can always move these wherever you want, whenever you want, any frame. It doesn't matter. You have the versatility and flexibility of IK Booster combined with the interactivity level of full-time IK. So you can get setups like this where you can control the pivot of any item from any point with no strings attached and no complicated setups that might bite you later. Okay, all of this stuff is completely removable, modifiable, and it just works. Another extremely useful application of this tool is with character self-interactions. This is fairly common when you need your characters to clasp their hands or hold onto their head or their forearm or their legs or whatever. And this provides a very fast way of getting this kind of setup in order. So let's say that our goal is to have this character's hands clasped, and I want to be able to move this arm to control both the arms. Well, very easy. I'll select the hand, run the ddrig IKB chain tool, and now I want the other hand to grab the goal that was created. All right, so with that setup done, I can now move the hand, and it moves both the characters' hands. All right, pretty slick, eh? Please give me your money. If you're a fan of small workflow enhancement tools, this update delivers tenfold. And let me go over some of these tools. Now, the first set of tools I'd like to cover concern nulls. All right. Now, I have a problem with nulls. Let's say that I want this character to look, I want this eye controller to stay in this spot in 3D space as he looks around. Okay, now normally you would use a null to hold this thing in space. All right, so I would go into my items tab. Actually, I just hit Control N, but add my null, and it gets created nowhere near the character. Okay, it's at the origin center, so I have to move this all the way up, move it all the way over to this eye controller, move my viewport around, put it, kind of move my viewport around to get figure out where this thing is in 3D space. All right, there it is. And then I'd follow this up with the assign tools, store selected, select the eye controller, add position and rotation. Of course, I have all these hotkeyed. I don't actually press these buttons anymore. So now the character is looking at this eye controller, all right? And I had to do all those steps in order to achieve this effect. But if I use my tools, that are included with this update. Now I can just select the null, add null at selection. All right, and it just adds it, where my selection was. So I could just do the same steps without moving my viewport around, and store selected, assign position and rotation. All right. So yeah. The add null at selection function takes the average of your selection and it places the null there. I really suggest making this your default add null hotkey, as it makes placing nulls into your scene a whole lot easier, much more convenient, and you waste a whole lot less time navigating your viewport and manipulating things. Also notice that the only keyframe in the timeline present is on the current frame. It's done this way on purpose so that the null doesn't slide around when you move it after creating it. So nice little convenience feature for you there. You can also create a null as a child of another object. Very, very simple. It does exactly as its name implies. All right. And these other functions here, let me get some more nulls into this scene so that I can show you some other things. These other functions allow you to change the shape and visual properties of your nulls so that you don't have to go into the object properties dialog to make changes to these things. You can size things up, size things down, make them X-ray, and basically all that good and happy stuff. With this update, I've also included a few keyframe tools that are new to the toolset. Now, the first of them is Move to Camera. Whenever you add a new object to your environment, it gets added to the origin center of your scene. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be anywhere near there. And I figured since your camera is always somewhere close to the action, there should be a tool that moves the selected object to the camera. You can then push this off and place it wherever you want. All right, it's a very handy placement tool, and you'll be using it all the time. In the past, editing Bezier curves for anything that consists of more than one channel, it was a nightmare. All right, say that we have this camera moving here, and we want an ultra smooth movement of some sort using a Bezier curve. All right, and TCB splines don't do it for us. We want it to be very smooth. Well, if we go into the graph editor and we make all of these curves a Bezier spline, we get lots of handles, of which we can only move one handle at a time, and there are no automation controls for these available in native Lightwave. And this would be a problem because we want smooth movement, but we'd have to do some workarounds in order to achieve that. Well, now you don't with this tool. The way this tool works is that you have your playhead at the start frame and run the tool, okay? And then you move your playhead to the end frame and run the tool again. This makes the tool active, as shown by this null. Now, whenever you select any items in your scene and you run the tool, it'll cycle between 6 curve presets that use Bezier splines. All right, so if I wanted a sharp S curve here, well, there we go. It's done. So the camera moves slowly, moves fast in between, and slows down to a stop. All right, and if we look in the graph editor, we can see that this little null preview here shows what the curve looks like. So you can visually see what is happening to the items you have selected. All right. And this is useful in many ways, not only for just product visualization, people who do product visualization, but it can be very useful when combined with other tools as well. So if I run translate average on these boxes, and I want a very smooth movement with them closing in together and maybe rotating a little bit. All right, so if I want to turn this into a smooth movement, well, now with this item selected, I'll run the Bezier curve set tool, and I can look at the bottom of the screen here to see what mode the curve is set to. So let's set it to a sharp S curve again. All right, and now we have this very smooth transition, across multiple channels. It's very easy to use. Now, if you want to set a new keyframe range for the Bezier tool, closing out the tool is as simple as just deleting the null. So if I delete this null, I can then set a new keyframe range to to move these objects with a Bezier spline. So I'll move this from frame 0 to 20 now. So Bezier curve set. And now I have my S-curve on this box. In character animation, it's pretty common to have a situation where you need to swap out a character with another version of the character because you need to make some big changes or something like that. And the typical way to do that is to use object dissolve, stepped object dissolve keyframes. So if I wanted to replace this character with a version of the character that has a bullet in their head at frame 10, well, typically I would have to muddle around with the object properties and go into the render tab, click the E, and create a keyframe, set this value to 100%, and you get the idea. It's a lot of work for something that should be simple. All right. So what I've done here is I've made tools that will allow you to swap out character assets or make them disappear whenever you want so that they don't render. So let's say that we want the character without the gunshot wound visible at the beginning of the animation. So I'll put dissolve 0%. I don't want the bullet hit version of the character visible, so I'll dissolve this 100%. And I want the bloody version to appear at frame 10, let's say. So I'm going to dissolve 100% the non-bullet hit version. All right, so that guy disappears, and I'll make this guy appear. Okay, so now when I scrub my keyframes, bam, he gets hit. All right, and this step dissolve is very useful for when you need to swap assets or just make things more efficient in your scene. If you're a character animator, sooner or later you're going to want to be able to flip the animation of your character or mirror it. And in the past, there wasn't really an easy way to do this, aside from baking out an MDD cache or some destructive workflow like that. But now, if you use an IK Booster rig or if you're dealing with motion capture, you can just select the topmost hierarchy item of your character and click this button, Mirror Animation. And it mirrors all of the animation, right down to the facial rig and everything. Now, there are some requirements. First off, this only works on IK Booster or motion capture rigs because I can't account for every possible scenario in terms of rigging. I do not know how I would deal with that. Secondly, you must use a standard left-right naming convention. Now, I included a long list of left-right naming conventions that my plugin looks for and detects automatically, so you don't have to enter in any special characters or anything like that. If it's standard, then it'll work. All right. And just to show you that this works on motion capture rigs as well, I have this figure stepping to the left. And now when I run this plugin, the skeleton will now step in the opposite direction. This last set of plugins all concern scene management tasks. The first one here is IK Booster only on selected. And a common problem when you have multiple IK Booster hierarchies in your scene is that when you try to select your character, it's not going to work because it's trying to select something that's behind the viewport. In this case, it's trying to select part of the tail on the other character. And this would often be a problem. So what I used to recommend was to only have IK Booster checked on the character that you're working on. Well, now this plugin basically just does that for you. Now I can select this character without any worry of selecting the wrong thing. All right, because it disabled IK Booster on the other character here automatically. These other tools are all designed to help you avoid having to use the scene editor. So if I want to make this character just disappear, I can just go on off selected plus child and set their visibility to off. All right, and now they're gone. Now, there is a little bit of logic that I put into the visibility on function. Character rigs typically have hidden locked items that are not meant to be used by the user. Okay, they are strictly for rigging setup, and they're not meant to be interacted with, and they're typically locked. So I've made it so that the visibility on plugin ignores locked items, so that when you make things visible again, it's not going to show items that you typically don't want to be seen. All right, so it was done that way on purpose. We also have scene globals. We can turn all the deformers in the scene off, or all the deformers of this in the scene on. We can also set the visibility type of items, of all selected items. So if I want all these boxes to be, let's say that we want them to be wireframe, well, now we can just do this without having to interact with the scene editor. So let's make these vertices, and you get the idea. It just works. All right, and typically in the scene editor, you would have to, like, if you wanted to change the visibility type of your selected items, you would have to hold the Control and Shift keys, right click, go into selection, highlight viewport selection, and then go and then select from this drop down list. And I just felt that was way too tedious for a rapid workflow. Okay, that's pretty much the gist of it. There are a lot of changes that I made that I just don't have enough time to document to mention here, and those are all outlined in the text file that you get on the updates that were made to these tools. A lot of them were rewritten completely to improve compatibility with Mac users or Windows users who had problems with the fact that the plugins accessed files. Well, now they don't. So there's all that, and of course it documents all the new tools and stuff too. So thank you very much for watching this video, and again, if you want to pick up this update and you are an existing user of these tools, look for the coupon in your email and you'll be able to grab it for $10. Everyone else will have to accept the new price of the tools. So thanks for watching, and thanks for your patronage.